See, the next point is a Windows Form Basic, that is the form controls. A Windows Form application is one that runs on the desktop computer. A Windows Form application is one that runs on the desktop computer. A Windows Form application will normally have a collection of controls such as labels, text box, list box, etc. Below is an example of a simple Windows Form application. It shows a simple login screen which is accessible by the user. The user will enter the required credential and then will click the login button to proceed. See in this diagram, username, it will contain text box controls, then password, username, passwords, this is the label controls, then text box controls, and then login can contain button controls. See, this is a collection of label control which are normally used to describe adjacent control. So in our case we have two text boxes and the labels are used to tell the user that one text box is for entering the username and the other for the password. Then the two text boxes are used to hold the username and password which will be entered by the user. Finally, we have the button control. The button control will normally have some code attached to the performing a certain set of action. So for example, in the above case, we could have the button perform an action of validating the username and password which is entered by the user. See, simple example C sharp hello world example. Now let's look at an example of how we can implement a simple hello world application in Visual Studio. For this, we would need to implement the below mentioned steps. First, the first step involves the creation of a new project in Visual Studio. After launching Visual Studio, you need to choose the menu option New Project. Step second, the next step is to choose the project type as a Windows Form application. Here we also need to mention the name and location of our project. See, in the project dialog box, we can see various options for creating different types of projects in Visual Studio. Click the Windows option on the left hand side. When we click the Windows option in the previous step, we will be able to see an option for Windows Form application. Click this option. Then third, we then give a name for the application, which in our case is demo application. We also need to provide a location to store our application. Finally, click on the OK button to the to let Visual Studio create our project. See, if the above steps are followed, you will get the below output in Visual Studio. Output, we will see a form design displayed in Visual Studio. It's in this form designer that you will start building your Windows Form application. See, the next, in this solution explorer, you will also be able to see the demo application solution. This solution will contain the below two project files. A form application called form1.cs. This file will contain all of the code for the Windows for application. The main program called program.cs is default code file which is created when a new application is created in Visual Studio. This code will contain the startup code for the application as a whole. On the left hand side of Visual Studio, you will also see a toolbox. The toolbox contains all the controls which can be added to Windows Form. On the left hand side of Visual Studio, you will also see a toolbox. The toolbox contains all the controls which can added a Windows Form controls like a text box or a label are just some of the controls which can be added to a Windows Form. Below is a screenshot of how the toolbox looks like. Below is a screenshot of how the toolbox looks like. Step 3. In this step, we will now add a label to the form which will display Hello World from the toolbox. In this step, we will now add a label to the form which will display Hello World from the toolbox. we'll need to choose the label controller and simply drag it onto the form. See, once you drag the label to the form, you can see this label embedded on the form as shown below. Step 4. The, the next step is to go to the properties of the control and change the text to a hello world. To go to the properties of a control, you need to right click the control and choose the properties menu option. See, the properties panel also shows up in Visual Studio. So for the label control in the properties control, go to the text section and enter hello world. Each control has a set of properties which describe the control. Each control has a set of properties which describe the controls. If you follow all of the above steps and run your program in Visual Studio, you will get the following output. In the output, you can see that the Windows form is displayed. You can also see hello world is displayed on the form. In the output, you can see that the Windows form is displayed. You can also see hello world is displayed on the form.